Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, Rusty.
Hey, we are recording this on a beautiful kind of autumn afternoon here on the Gold Coast, but you have not wasted the day, which is typical of you, mate, isn't it? Where were you this morning? You were at the motor park, weren't you? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I asked you to do a little bit later in the day for obvious reasons. I needed to get my Thursday morning fix, which was at Queensland Motor Park on my YZ450, and a few 15-minute motos later, I was happy and I drove home and geared up for this.
They tell me you're still pretty handy and you can smash out a 30-minute moto too. Is this true?
Yes, it's true, but at a subdued pace and with a lot of years of training other individuals, I know the difference between a race pace and a riding pace.
Yeah.
I can ride for 30 minutes, but I can't race for 30 minutes.
That's still amazing, mate. I look at you and you've preserved, I feel, your age, your youth so well, mate. That's amazing that you still that, and you've never lost the love for it, have you?
No. I really think as far as preserving, being an athlete, you've got to look after yourself. And for years and years, I did stories in the Australian Dirt Bike magazine, 38 years actually.
Yep.
And people always perceived me as a health freak and always fit. So it would look really silly if I went the other way.
Yes.
So
let yourself go.
Yeah, that's right. So the pressure was on to stay fit, stay looking good, but I like it. I like it a lot. And I think the motorcycling now, I'm not much of a reader. I don't do puzzles. Mm-hmm. So the cognitive ability of your brain to handle motorcycle, off-road, and motocross, each hand's doing something different, your finger's doing something different to your hand, your eye line, your thoughts, your body, you're moving, both legs doing different things. So the cognitive ability of your brain is working overtime to ride a motocross bike, let alone a regular motorcycle. But a motocross bike's on the edge of heightened ability because you've got ruts, you've got holes, you've got rocks to miss, you've got lines to pick. It's a bit like most racing, but there's so many variables there. So I think it's really good for my mental outlook.
People, as they age, like to do things like crosswords. Forget it. That's from a mental perspective. What you've just described is way better than that, isn't it?
It is, and I'm not into crosswords, I'll tell you.
Can we come to early life for you, if you don't mind? I'm glad that you bring up ADB magazine there too, because I think they were often regulars at the family farm when you were younger. You would do some riding along the way. But it was correct me if I'm wrong here, an 11-acre family farm, Menai, in Sydney's south. And Gawley, it sounded like a fun place with different toys and things that you and your brother could roar around in bush bashing and so on, couldn't you?
I was very lucky. Yeah, my dad had Shetland ponies and there was 11-acre property and he liked go-karts in the early days. So he had an oiled go-kart track at the back dirt. Yep. And I used to be on the track degrading it and sliding and dropping oil on it. My brother Dean would do the same thing. And I was driving go-karts, and in my book, I've got a page of where it all began. It's a classic photo because
it's a beautiful photo.
I've got a cap on, I've got thongs on, the inside front wheel's off the ground, the thing's sliding. It's just a classic. And anyone looking at the day go, oh God, that's dangerous. But anyway, it was good fun.
You can, without doubt, it's unmistakably you. You can see the eyes and the kind of look. It's a mixture of fun, but an early glimpse, I reckon, of the bit of the intensity that we came to know from you. Speedway, which we will come to later in the conversation, was very much in the family kind of DNA. Your dad loved it, didn't he?
He did. He really loved the Speedway at the Sydney Showground, and not only did he present his horses during the Easter show at the showground, but every Saturday night we sat in the member stand, watched the legends go around, the Jim Aries and the Gordon Gascos and the Billy Warners, Howard Revell, Johnny Stewart was my hero back in the day, all those guys. I just loved it, and I don't know where the smell of methanol and Castrol R came from back in the day, but I've always loved going fast and it's actually a bit of a worry to me nowadays, as I just explained before to you, but you get that.
Yeah, an amazing and iconic place from a speedway perspective. You brought up the Shetland ponies there a moment ago. Your dad, Bert, had a few kind of rules around if you were going to muck around on the property with noisy things, bikes, bush bashers, whatever, you weren't allowed to scare the ponies, were you?
No, and in fact, he threw me on the Shetland ponies to break them in sometimes because
really?
I was young and a bit more invincible than anyone else was. So, but I never liked 1 horsepower.
Okay.
That's the best way I can say it. I never liked 1 horsepower, so I needed multiple horsepower, which certainly developed that way later on with sprint car racing.
Definitely. I'm always amazed when I've I'm up to like 400 episodes of this now, and I'm always amazed about how athletes in any sport, but mainly motor racing, latch on to, gravitate to, connect with their thing. Now, if I look for you, I mean, you clearly fall in love in a two-wheel perspective at quite a young age. I think you had like a fold-away army bike, a Kawasaki 75, a Honda XR 75, but you get your hands ultimately on a Yamaha, and it's kind of love at first sight, a deep connection there, mate, wasn't there?
It was, and it wasn't just the bike. The first ever Yamaha mini bike was a JT1 60cc bike, but it wasn't all about the bike. Sure, the bike was good, but it was about the dealer, Trevor Hunter at Stony Creek Motorcycles. He helped me initially, and then Macklin Motorcycles, another Yamaha dealer, Harry Macklin helped me, and Steve Ashkenazi eventually became one of my mechanics. He worked for Harry, and it was the love that they put into the sport, and I could see that love, and I sort of gravitated towards it for I can't really explain why, but Yamaha, then I've been now Yamaha for 52 years, and there's very few athletes, sports people out there that have ever been with one company for 52 years. And Yamaha's just been so good to me over the year, backed me right through my racing, 15, 16 years of schooling that I travelled Australia teaching safer motorcycle schools to people. You know, there's road racing, there's Fink, there's all, even they sponsored me a little bit with the sprint car back in the day. So they've really been good people.
I think when you look globally at the example you just given, right? I mean, the only one I can immediately think of is like Sir Jackie Stewart, who has a 58-year relationship with Rolex. Rolex, but there's very few athletes that have been able to have that longevity, and we probably need to tell more of your full kind of timeline in the discussion here to get to that. But what is the secret of that longevity? Because that is a great example, I think, to young athletes of what is possible. And for in your case, when you look at your story, it isn't just about the wins. It isn't just about the stats and successes. It's the relationship and what you built with them, isn't it?
It is. And like I said before, nice people. And I think it was drilled into me by my mother more than anyone that you've got to be a stable individual, look after the people, look after you, hang with them. Don't just, kick them aside, which a lot of people do these days. And yes, I had opportunities. Honda came to me once, BMW came to me once. I had all these other opportunities, but I never really went there because Yamaha were always so good to me. And through a lot of my racing and into my schooling days, there's a guy called Stephen Cottrell who was in charge of Yamaha, and he was really good to me over the years. And you've got to give back. And that's what I did.
I can't remember with him. What was his total? It was like 37 years with the business or something or other, wasn't he? He was with them forever.
Yeah, and he started some really smart things with Yamaha in as far as financial and insurance. And at Yamaha Australia, there's always been a Japanese individual that's been above everyone.
Gotcha.
But when Stephen was there, they actually put him as the head guy because they respected his ability so much. So take my hats off to Steve. He's retired now and he's enjoying Sunshine Coast, but good on him.
Good on him. Great fella too. Did you keep that first bike? What became of it, that Yamaha?
Oh, I don't know. That first JT1 went. But what I did keep was, this is a little story too, in 74, the first YZ came out, which was a road race engineered designed motocross bike. And it had drilled clevis pins and all sorts of magnesium on the bike in 74, we're talking. And the bike was so trick. I walked to Harry Macklin's shop and it was on display in the window, and I'm just sitting there as a 14-year-old Googling at this bike and thinking how cool it was. Well, I still have that bike.
Awesome.
At home.
Awesome.
And my boss bought it. I raced it with my boss. And then when I got it back, which is a bit of a story because the guy that's supposed to restore it did a runner and took most of the bike with him. And I had to buy bits all over the world to get it back together again. But I restored it back standard as I looked at it in the window of that shop. Brilliant. Not as a race bike, standard.
Brilliant.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, love terrific. You have over time, with your passion around motocross donations, sold off various bits of memorabilia to assist that program. I'm so pleased that you've kept that. We'll come to donations as we go here. Was it the St George Motorcycle Club? What's the early club involvement for you, and what happens here? Because your dad was a little bit nervous about you doing kind of open races and things, wasn't he? What transpires in the early part of that of your racing career?
Well, Dad said, "No way, son. You're not racing. You're not going anywhere else. You can ride up the backyard, but that's it." Well, Arthur Blizzard, the late Arthur Blizzard, rest in peace,
And,
Arthur.
and Jan, beautiful people.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
But Jan's around now. She's
Yes.
very, very smart, still in the 90s.
Yeah.
Arthur went to Dad and said, Dad, look, we'll look after him. We'll make sure he's got the safe gear on. He's looked after, blah, blah, blah. And so that was the excuse that I needed. So I got into some club racing first, and I did really, really well in club racing. And then they talked him into letting me do an open event, an open dirt track event, which are C-grade teams day, which we won, the first ever event we went to. And then it just went on from there. And Dad then had nothing to say. But, Dad only went to 2 ever race meetings in my life.
Really?
Mum went to a lot, but he said he was too nervous.
Really?
So didn't worry me. I just got on with it and had fun,
Arthur, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think he turned a blind eye in a good way, in the early part of those of your career there to enable you to grow and experience and so on. And I'm really glad that you brought up he and Jan there. I mean, they were just part of the fabric of they've done so many great things in motorcycling, didn't they?
They certainly have. They've been lovely people.
So tell me about what that enabled you to do, because you got to throw your leg over a couple of bikes that were...
Yeah, well, I not only threw my leg over some important bikes, but also he got me racing at 15 and a half years of age instead of 16. So he sort of snuck it in and maybe changed the dates here and there to get me going. And that's what the guy who is in charge now... Peter Doyle, who's in charge of Motorcycling Australia now.
Yeah, he's been on the pod.
Yeah, he's so good for the sport. Peter was a mechanic with Neville Doyle back in the day when the factory Kawasaki team was with Anthony Gunter and Trevor Williams. It was my main competition back in the day. Yeah. So I've worked with Peter for years, because then I went to America and I did some training with Matt Mladen over there, and Peter was the manager of that team as well.
Yes.
They won 7 USA Superbike championships. So Peter's a great operator, been from the start to the finish, knows how to do it, and MA is going so well at the moment with Peter in control.
The helm there, yeah. Can I come, mate, if I can, to... I often ask about the influence of heroes or people maybe that are star status at a significant moment in your life. There is a yarn here that you share in the book around maybe the early 1970s, perhaps 72, Oran Park, the influx of some Euros for a big race there, and the likes of Roger DeCosta and others, and you were wowed by that, weren't you?
I certainly were. I was a young boy and went up on the hill and sat in the bleachers, or not even the bleachers at Oran Park then, it was on the dirt, lucky to have a rug under you, you know how it is.
Yes.
And I just saw Joel Robert and Roger DeCosta ride, and they blew away the Australian riders just badly that day. And I went, oh, that's so good. I want to do this. And this was when I was going to the Speedway all the time and watching the Jim Airies and the Bill Warners and the Johnny Stewarts and the Howard Ravells. And then I just started with 2 wheels, and I want to do this. This is me. Yep. And with my mum's influence and my brother's help in the early days, and St George Motorcycle Club giving a good, it sort of got me going. And I didn't know I was any good. I just rode. And then I'm going pretty good here. I might as well have a go. Yeah. And it just went from level to level, yeah.
Before we sort of venture more into the sort of adult part of your career, from a schooling perspective, I think you went to Lugano, then Peakhurst. Was it Peakhurst High maybe that you went to? But you only really had one job beyond high school. The rest of your life has been everything to do with motorcycle racing. And I don't know whether you finished it, but was it an apprentice mechanic at a Jaguar dealership? Tell me about that.
It was, yeah. We specialised in Jags and BMCs, and my boss was Bruce Jones, and Bruce was an avid racer himself back in the day with his friend Warren Weldon, who was a legend of a driver as well, but Bruce he and I were there. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to be clean, how to present things really well. He was a great boss. He really was. But a little story about this is when I wasn't working on either an 1800 Austin or a Jag XJ6 or a V12 E-Type or whatever it was, all sorts of stuff, he would get me because the back rear engineer business had these jobs that they had to do, and there was the multiples. I'm talking thousands of a machining, putting a thread on, parting it off, putting a new bit in the lathe, and I'd sit there bored as... And I'd say to myself, I need to be better at motorcycle racing. I want that to be my career. This bored the hell out of me. So it was one of the more motivational aspects that pushed me on to being a better person, to do a better job at what I was doing, because I was so bored doing a regular job. And through my years of coaching the academy and the University of Motocross for years, I used to tell kids these things that, you think that, you want to be a hero in the sport, but on the other side too, if you are got a boring job of a builder and hitting in nails all the time, that may not suit you. So putting effort into your motorcycle racing, it might be fruitful for you because very few people are ever that good at motorcycle racing. There's only a few.
When did that hit home to you? You transformed the sport, mate, in so many ways, and we will discuss that. But understanding the value of being professional, dedicated, disciplined athlete, is that a learned thing from your upbringing? Is that something that competition taught you? And how did you become that person?
Good question, but I think a lot of it came from my mother.
Did it?
What she taught me, what she said about being truthful to who supports you and to hang in there with things. And then I went to America in 1980 after I was Mr Motocross back in those days, which was the best in Australia.
Yeah.
And I'd won Mr Motocross for the second time and finished second to Anthony Gunter twice before that. So basically I was one of the best with Anthony in Australia. And both he and I went to America. Good story, this one. Went to Saddleback Park in Southern California, got my butt kicked.
Really?
Severely got my butt kicked. So I've finished these races and I've gone, wow, this is telling me something here. I need to get my act together. And I started reading books, learning about nutrition, hydration, psychology, and then watching what the Americans did because they were the leaders of the pack at that particular time. They won multiple Motocross of Nations, all 12 in a row or something from that era. And those guys were all really, really professional and good. And I'd look at that, go to the races, and it just sort of grew on me. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I tried to develop Australian sport the way it has.
That's more than a fascination for you. You enjoy that side of it, I know, and we can cover a bit more of that. In the 70s, you've brought up Mr Motocross, which I love. Let's go there, right? So Oran Park, I don't know what year, maybe 74 or early to mid 70s here. You win a C grade race there. You come across Vincent Tesoriero for the first time. A very respected promoter who you had a great relationship with. And at the end of the day, I think an opportunity arises for you to actually contest the main events here. He gives you the opportunity, I think, to have a crack at this. Please tell me if I have this wrong. 13th, 10th, 8th, 5th. Unreal, mate.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. And at the start of the day, I won the 250 race.
Yes.
And some of the top Australian guys were in that race. And Vince said, hey, we want this guy out there in the Mr Motocross. They put me from C grade to B grade that day so that I could ride the race. And then I got those places that you said. So, yeah, I did pretty good on the day. And this, young boy in amongst all these experts, and I just had to go.
What did he see in you?
Well, he must have seen the speed that I had and other attributes that I had, and maybe he never really spent much time with me until after that, because once I got on the next year, which was the Grace Brothers team,
yes,
I was a member of that. We would do in-store promotions around Australia. I'd have to talk to the crowds, and we did a lot of promoting of the sport in radio stations like this, TV interviews, all sorts of stuff. So it taught me as the early time to do it right. And Vincent was a man before his time.
Yes.
I'm still a great mate of Vincent's now, and he's such a good guy. He thinks forward. I wish he was still running a lot of the sport nowadays because I know he'd be better for it, but unfortunately he isn't.
He in a promotional sense, that connection that he had with, either motorcycle dealers, brands, and companies that he was able to, I guess, entice into the game. So it's in a period of nice or beautiful growth in a commercial sense too, mate. I mean, brands like Triple M, where we are now, Grace Brothers, you've just mentioned, Pepsi, Toshiba, and more over that late 70s, 80s period come into the game, don't they?
Yeah, it was so good. They had big names, and Meyer was another one.
Yeah.
It was just amazing, these names that you wouldn't see today that were involved in the sport. It really helped lift the sport up and helped with advertising, of course, and the radio and the TV, and he would give everything back to them, as far as clippings and newspaper clippings and things like that, which was what you did back in the day. And a copy of this interview like this, he'd give that back to them because their name was mentioned, things like that. So a different world to today, that's for sure. But yeah, he was a man before his time.
Two-wheel game can be dangerous at times. That's just the game you play. Were there any kind of early wake-up calls? What were there any little moments that you think back on and realise that were tough, or was that clean? riding style, that professional, clinical kind of style? Was that something from the very outset?
Yeah, I never really got injured in the early days.
Mm.
In 78, I went to Noumea because I raced in Noumea in Tahiti just for fun at the end of our season. And I broke my ACL in my left leg in 78, but I didn't really realise what I had done, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
And some people can't really function too much without the ACL and some people can. Well, I could. And I still could run and do everything with a fracture. It's still gone now and I haven't had anything done to it.
Really?
But that's another story. We'll talk about 2 new knees that I need later in the story. I'll be the bionic man soon with a new hip already and then 2 new knees. But anyway, that's another story. Mothers are going to be, I don't want my kid doing motocross. He's got... Anyway, that's another story. So, yeah, I didn't have too many accidents over the years.
Okay.
And still to today, I have not broken anything in my upper body, which is...
That's a remarkable
which
tale
is pretty
to tell,
remarkable.
mate. Yeah.
Couple of cracks in ribs through falling on things. A lot of it's been mountain biking these days.
Okay.
E-biking.
Yes.
Trying to be too young for my age, I might add.
Okay.
But yeah, I put it down to a few things, Greg. And the one thing is to wear the protective gear, which today the boys, it's not cool to wear shoulder or body armor. But now Alpine Star have got Tech Air for motocross. So the airbags inflate if you hit the ground. I wore that today. I didn't crash, of course,
Yes.
but I wore that today because it's such a good insurance policy. If you get fired over the handlebars or you have a fall, it inflates and it protects the vital organs of the body and your shoulders. So they need to be on top of it these days, these young kids. But back then I wore all the best body armor that I could, the best helmets, of course. I was always flexible. And I learnt that the first year in America, 1980. I went to a gym, and that's what my book is called, No Easy Way.
Yes.
Because it was written in bold words on the gym.
Really?
And that's just stuck in my head over the years. That was another bit of influential activity that I saw. And I went, you know what? That's very true. You've got to work hard at what you do.
Yeah.
And that No Easy Way just stuck in my head for years. And no matter what I did, whether it was racing, bikes, cars, traveling Australia, doing motorcycle schools, leaving my family for 6 weeks at a time to do what I had to do. No Easy Way is certainly, when it comes to being professional, you can't have it always the good way. There's No Easy Way suits it amazingly.
Very, very much so. Can we come to the sort of late 70s around Mr Motocross? I mean, firstly, you bring up Anthony Gunter there a moment ago. Grunt was in kind of a good way, a nemesis, a great rival, but an amazing friend to you too, mate.
Great friend.
Much missed.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Have you got a memory of a lasting memory of him?
Just Anthony was just a grit and determined sort of guy, a lot of guts and really put it on the line. And so many races that he beat me in where maybe the tyre was flat and he still was faster. And he'd sometimes just grit his teeth and just hold it on. And that's why they called him Grunt, because he didn't say much, but he grunted at you and did the job. But we were great mates, and it was a shame to see him lost through bowel cancer. And, I talked at his funeral and it was very sad. But we're all going to go at one time, so it's just the way it goes sometimes.
You had some amazing and very special days with him.
Yeah.
Can I illustrate what you've just spoken about, if you don't mind? 77. You are both in contention for the final of Mr Motocross. You win the final round, but Grunt takes the title, and I think he had broken bones in his foot that day or something too. Is that right?
Yeah. And in 79, I've got a 21-point lead going to the last championship at Oran Park, and he gets this factory RN 370 Suzuki and blows my doors off in every race. And yeah, good on him. He did a great job. But yeah, I lost that one in 79 because he was just too good on the day.
In the middle is 78. You win your first Mr Motocross crown, and there were plenty of things to test you along the way too. I mean, people talk about savouring some things, and I mean that your career results, Gawley, are unbelievable, right? But is this one, because it's maybe the first and because of the challenges to get it, is that one that sort of sticks in your memory, in your mind?
Yes and no, Greg. It's sort of, it was important because it was the first one and you work towards it. But like I said, in my early days, I was just sort of having fun. I was just out there riding, and I had this ability that I didn't realize that I had. I could go fast on a motorcycle. So there was people around me helping me. So yeah, it was really good. And I went, okay, well, let's carry on. Let's see what we can do in the future. So it was good, but it's only one of many things that are very good to me. Yeah.
Okay. In the 80s there, I want to say it may have been 81, did you get your first works bike?
Yes.
In 80? Tell me about that thing. That sounds incredible. It was one of a few, or maybe the only in the country.
We
Is that
only
right?
got one in Australia, two went to Europe, and two went to America. People like Brock Glover, Heike McCullough, they had the bikes. And unfortunately, the bike was awesome as far as its design. You look at it, was really trick to look at. But unfortunately, the rear suspension didn't work too well. And on a really rough track, I'd run the production bike with factory suspension changes.
Really?
And then on the smoother tracks, I'd run the factory bike because the engine was so awesome.
Gotcha.
It was a 4-speed power valve. And people who don't know what a power valve is, there's this valve that goes over the exhaust port and gives a more torquey response like today there is with a 4-stroke motocross bike. So it was a really good bike. And the next year, we put that engine in a 250 frame because it was center port. The exhaust port was center, which the frame encompassed that to go out the middle. And I did really good in 82 because of that particular engine in that bike. And yeah, a legend bike. But there's been very few factory bikes in Australia. That was one of them. I also had a factory 250 in 77 to ride at the Australian titles at Dargle. And Kawasaki had the factory bikes that Grunt and Trevor Williams did. There was the factory Suzuki that Anthony won the 79 Mr Motocross. But after that, there's not many factory machines that ever made it to Australia, apart from Wayne Gardner's practice bike. That's another story.
Okay.
Me riding with Wayne, he had a factory 500cc HRC thing at one stage.
What was that thing like?
Oh, a beast.
Because you saw in your career, you saw the kind of end of the 500 motocross bike era in some respects, didn't you? And then
definitely. Yeah. It went out and 4-strokes came in, and I was traveling Australia teaching motorcycle school, so I wasn't out there riding and racing at all at those days. And I'd turn up and have a bit of a ride at some of the Thumper races, but I wasn't really into racing at that stage. It was my job, and I had a family, had a mortgage. So my job was to do the schools for Yamaha around the country, and I was the first guy to do that, to get out into Australia after I got taught by a mate of mine, Lenny Williamson. They had the Soft Earth Motocross School. They invited me to be just an assistant instructor and a demonstrator, and I got a bit of the joy of helping people.
Okay.
I still have today. I love to help people, and I love to see the smile on their face that you help them and they go a bit faster, or they present themselves at the race better as far as the placing. And I see that in them, the smile in their face, and it brings back my memories of what I did back in the day. So, it's just like watching Australian Idol on TV last night, the winner, and just to see how they take that on and, wow, they can't believe it. Well, I love that. It brings a tear to my eye sometimes. I know that's really silly, but I love to see young people realise their dreams.
It's great that you bring up Len there a moment ago too. I mean, for a time there, I think he was team manager for the Motocross the Nation squad, wasn't he, and so on. Did he not teach you quite a valuable lesson, maybe around toughness, around, you were that precision we talked about before, and the clean style that you had, and so on. But he was like, if you're going to go to places like the States or to whatever else, and you got to be prepared to bang bars and wheels here and did he teach you a bit of a lesson in that regard?
He did. He used to come to my track at Menai, and we had a little bit of a motocross track there, and the dirt track that we talked about, we had the go-karts on, and he'd carve me up, and he put me on the ground a couple of times. And he'd say, well, you left yourself open. You've got to cover that line. And he taught me a lot about line selection and protecting your line. So, he taught me a lot. But I tell you who also taught me a lot. In the early days when I started racing motocross, I went off and did dirt track. Mm-hmm. In those days, it was called short circuit. Yep. And for Americans, it's flat track. Well, those older guys in that particular era, they were amazing. They were on the sliders, the speedway bikes. Yep. Mm-hmm. 2 gears in the gearbox, had a front brake on it, which didn't work that well anyway. But they would use different lines, and they would carve you up before they even looked at you. They didn't care. It was hard racing. They don't do it these days. The boys don't do it at all. None of the specialist motocross guys ever do what I do, what I did back then. They don't diversify like I did. But that's because there's more pressure on them from their sponsors to do one thing. Yeah. But those guys, those old guys, taught me so much. And Anthony and I did a whole lot of that racing back in the day, and I managed to get 3 Australian dirt track titles from those guys. And Good fun, but they taught me a lot about being a hard person.
Did they?
Yeah.
When we talked before about the first Mr Motocross title, did you keep the check? I think, did you get a $2,500 check or something or other?
Yeah,
that's
at home. Yeah.
You kept that?
I still got it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I still got it. I've got rid of a lot of my memorabilia acts. I've been raising money for our Motocross of Nations team by not keeping the money, but selling that stuff off.
Yeah.
Just whatever you want to pay for it, give me that, and that goes into the kitty to.
Love it.
Because Motocross of Nations, I'll let you come into that. Yeah. But I started in '84. I was the first one to say to Len, "Hey, let's go do this, Len," and he had the motivation to follow it up, to chase it up, because he's a steward at the time. And I provided the motivation, but he did it. We raised all the money ourselves. We did that for 10 years between us. And we did the whole thing before MA, then ACU took over and then started to do it. But we did it for 10 years. And just because we wanted to get Australia on the map. And, that was 42 years ago. And you can imagine how elated I was a couple of years ago when we won the thing with the Lawrence brothers.
Yes.
I had tears coming out my eyes. It was just so special for me.
Let's come to that and to, a little later how special those guys are. To the commercial side of it. We talked about Vincent Tesoriero there before. Somewhere along the lines here, maybe it's late 70s, maybe it's early 80s, I can't remember. You get one of your first big contracts and it's around like the $40,000 mark or something or other, which back then was probably a lot to go motorcycle racing.
Good money from Yamaha.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Did you? Where are you in life at this stage? Are you married or have you got your own home? And how helpful was that in terms of A, the dream, but B, getting financial reward for it too?
Yeah, well, that reward started really early, and that reward stayed there all through the years of racing and into the coaching that I did right up to 2003. Mm-hmm. That same monetary reward, although it wasn't as valuable in 2003 as it was when I first started, but still, that's why Yamaha have been so good. That's why I'm hanging in there with them. But that was a really big help back in the day. But it's important to me to, nowadays I've got a beautiful wife, Gay. I've been with her for 47 years. We had 2 kids, Sean and Alex. Sean's got 2 girls. Alex has got 2 boys.
Lovely.
They're 3 and 2, and the girls are 6 and 3. And
what are you, mate? Are you granddad? Are you poppy? Or
I'm poppy.
Poppy.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
excellent.
a poppy. But they're a lot of fun, and the young boys, they're into their balance bikes and all that sort of stuff. And I never pushed my kids either. I bought them motorcycles. Sean came along to the schools that we did and rode and said, "Dad, I just don't want to go. It's fun, but it's hot and it's hard." And I said, "Okay, son,
it's not
no
me.
problem, mate. It's not you. It's not you. I'm not a dad that wants to stand on the sidelines and yell at the kid when he comes in because he hasn't done any good.
Yep.
That's not how you develop champions. And the way you get champions is they want to do it.
Yes.
They need the want. And I had the want over the years, and I can see if my kids didn't have the want, no problem. I'll support them in what they wanted to do."
What a great line, need the want. That's a good little takeaway for some young riders here today, among others that I'm sure that you'll share.
Yeah, without that, you've got no chance.
No chance. So just to sort of underscore what you're talking about around the longevity, the commercial recognition, if you will, and so on. In the book, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but I think this is a line from Vincent Tesoriero's contribution. He talks around just how you and Grunt helped significantly to kind of pioneer the sport in that phase. You proved its legitimacy in the commercial arena, and you really understood, gravitated, and rolled your sleeves up and got your teeth into the promotional side, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I could see that was going to help the sport. And not only was I training people at that time and also racing at a high level, but I could see the sport needed help. And it still needs help today. But that's why I tried to be as professional as I could. I tried to talk as good as I could and sounded like an individual that knew what he was talking about. And, it was just important for us to get the business side of the sport going. And in fact, another little addition to that, in the early 90s, the tax department in Australia deemed motorcycle racing as not a human endeavour.
What?
And sailing as well. So I just started going to the Institute of Sport at that stage. The door was opened by an he was from basketball, Henry Daigle.
Yeah.
He was controlling MA at the time, which hadn't changed to Motorcycling Australia at that stage, and he got us into the Institute of Sport. So we did testing down there. So the testing that I did, and with Henry and the Specialist Institute of Sport, we presented that to the tax department, and they went, "Oh, okay, VO2 max of this, high heart rates, lactate levels of this. Oh, you guys are sports people." So then I changed that for riders from then on, as far as getting legitimate tax deduction.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for our sport.
Yeah. And the change that you help, I think, goes beyond that too. So that there's recognition at a whatever, a government or administrative level, right? But even in a public perception sense, and Vincent, I think, draws the parallel about how in the 70s it was probably, like football jerseys and leather bike pants. You were about professional look, the safety you talked about before, and so on, weren't you? Yeah.
Clean jersey, a nice cap at the presentation, speak correctly. I was all, and I think that come from Mum.
Did it?
Yeah, most of that. Definitely not Dad.
Okay.
Dad taught me what not to do.
Okay. So the media stuff came easy, like we're doing now. That came easy to you. That was a learned thing, or you just love doing it.
Come pretty easy to me, and I didn't. Vince helped me along the way as well, and so it was just sort of something that fell in my lap, and it was really nice to look back and say that it helped the sport. Yeah.
We'll talk about Leesky because I've spoken to him on the phone before you came in today. He reckons there was one win somewhere, and you were maybe on the podium or on stage or whatever, and to ensure that you never missed thanking the right sponsors, you had the boys write all the sponsors on the pit board, didn't you? So you could see it in the distance.
Exactly. That was a great technique. I had Steve, or who were Frank Pond, Steve Ashkenazi, my brother Dean. They had the lap board flipped over backwards, and I'd have my stickers aligned in the seniority of who pays the most, so that I could just read it away and not forget anyone. Yeah, it was pretty easy. Instead of, when there's 15 different people that help you, it's really hard to remember them all.
Yeah.
And I'm no Einstein, that's for sure, so I needed some help.
Well done. You said you corrected me there too. Thank you. I think I said pit board as in a car racing thing, but it was the lap board that they use. Can I come, before I get to Leesky, to Dakar? He's been on the pod with us too. He talks about meeting you at Hungry Creek, I think, the motorcycle park there north of Sydney, rather, in the 1970s, and the memories that you might have of him from back then. I mean, his dad was insistent on doing some of your courses and things, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and Craig was a young guy, really quiet, just a kid out of school, and I really befriended him, and I could see that he had talent, so I was, I'll try to help you. Yeah. And I really did mentor him a lot in the early days, and he lived with a friend of mine called David Hirsch just down the road from where I lived at Cronulla, where I lived with my wife. Yep. And we used to ride and train and do a lot of fun things together. I took him to America a couple of times and stayed with Goat Brecker, a factory rider over there, and just good mate Craig is, and he's done so much for the sport too now. Like whether I influenced in that regard to carry on into the sport. And I know I was talking to Todd Waters, who's in charge of Raceline and Factory Husky now, and he told me the other day, he said, "You've inspired me so much, Stephen, that there's life after finished racing.
Excellent.
I can do more."
Yeah.
And good on you, Todd. That's what we need. We need people that are forward-thinking and going forward in the sport and developing aspects of the sport that can make the money and make the sport bigger.
Bring the skill set and apply it in a different area of the game. If the competition aspect is over or winding down, there's no reason you can't apply yourself in another area of the sport.
Exactly.
Dakar, you would, I think, help introduce him to sponsors along the way that helped him. And then ultimately he ended up with you at Toshiba Yamaha, didn't he?
He did, yeah. We're on the same team for a while. As was Jeff Leask. In the 81, 82 era. And Craig was a great rider and developed into a really strong competitor. And Craig won 4 Mr Motocross titles like I did too. He equaled my record, which was really good, that we were both sort of so friendly and we both got that title. And then later on, Jay Marmont has also won 4 now, and also Dean Ferris has won 4. Now, Dean's back this year too. Okay. If he wins this year, he's going to jump ahead of all of us and be probably the greatest as far as 500cc or open class winners are concerned.
Brilliant. Just on Dakar, at this stage of your career, are you naturally team leader or mentor? Is a bit of that kind of coming in at this stage with Dakar, with Leesky and these sort of guys coming through? Are you thinking like that, or you're just thinking about I'm competitor, I've still got to beat you, and just we get on pretty good when we take the helmet off or whatever? What was the relationship like in that stage?
Back in the day, it was fine, and with Jeff, I could see that he had a great package. Gary Ben came back from Europe. He was an excellent mechanic. He knew how to set up suspension. The Honda was good at that particular era. And Jeff was a young kid coming through and was very motivated. And I'm a realist, so I could see that package was going to be really, really hard to beat, which it was. And the same with Craig a little bit later on. Craig had good help, had good support around him, had a good motorcycle, had the want, that really trained hard. And then I remember the early days going training with Craig, and we'd be in the sandhills at Kernhill when there was sand at Kernhill. When there was sand. Yeah. That's a other story. Yeah. And we'd be running in there, and I'd always smoke him, and he'd go, golly, I'll never beat you. And I said, mate, one day you'll smoke me, don't worry. And sure enough, years down the line, my tongue's hanging out and he's leading me. Just the way it moves on, that's the way it evolves.
Leesky tells a very similar story about runs that the pair of you did and the competitive element in that. And I think he felt like you could understand your teammate a bit better, how far they could go, what their inner will was like.
Yeah, well, you can really develop that when you see how much they put in their training, how much that's that want we talked about. Yeah. I want to be good. Yeah. We can see that in someone. You can see that very easily when you're around someone like that. And I saw that in Craig and Jeff for sure. I also saw that in Ray Vanderberg, who took the championship off me in 83 with a great ride. I went into that with a 20-odd point lead too, and in 83. And I could have won 6 of those things, but I missed out on 2. But anyway, it was good that Ray did really, really well. And to come forward to last year, Motocross of Nations in America at the Ironman track, Ray, Jeff and I have got our arms around one another. We've all got tears coming out our eyes because we've just won Motocross of Nations again. Yeah. It's so good to bring the boys back together.
And all three of you still, whatever age you are respectively now, as passionate about it as
without a doubt
as ever. To Jeff briefly, he talks about meeting you, I think, as a 12-year-old, what would have been King of the Cross maybe in Western Australia there. You were a senior, he was a junior, and he was immediately struck, even as a young boy like that, at the commitment, the kind of intensity from you. And he tells a good yarn around a pre-season race in 82 at Nowra. And he says you had to ride, it was an interesting format on the day. You had to ride a 125, a 250 and a 500 on the day. And he was chasing you in aboard the 250 in one of the races there. And he'd watched you land from a particular jump, and in that kind of very precise manner, you were landing in much the same place. And he thought, right, if he's always landing on the left, I'm going to get him on the right at some point here. And so he launches, but you didn't. You went the other way on this particular occasion. I think he landed on top of you, and you both ended up in the dirt, and it got pretty fiery there for a moment, I think, didn't you?
Probably would have. I don't remember it too well, but I would have went to his line because I could see that he's probably lining me up. Okay. And so you take his line on the last lap or near the last lap to block him, but unfortunately it ended in tears when he jumped on me, yeah.
The foreword in the book is by Mick Doohan, and he talks about you inspiring a generation on how to compete at the very highest level, how you go about preparing to win, the training that we've discussed, the physical and the kind of mental conditioning. You set a benchmark that hadn't been done before, and I think in Formula One they use people like Senna and Schumacher as key benchmarks in the last 30, 40 years, whatever, of turning the game around. And you did that here. You talked about your mum, but where are you drawing the physical, remember you're reading books, so is there things from America? Where are you drawing some of this stuff from?
Yeah, books from America, Gary Bailey's training, I knew Ricky Johnston, would talk to him a little bit, but I don't really know. It just came from within that I could see what I needed to do, there was no AIS or Institute of Sport at that particular time. There was no training venues. It was just what I read about, what I had to do, and I hurt the knee, so then I started cycling. So then I got right into cycling, and I do a lot of kilometres with road cycling, not so much mountain bikes. There wasn't any good mountain bikes back in those days. But I can't really answer that, Greg, because it just sort of evolved, and I just learnt what I had to do, and I did it. And Mum helped me a lot, and my brother was always very professional with everything that he did, and that installed it into me that I had to do it that way. And people around me, like my boss that I said, Bruce Jones, he was that way, is very professional. So I suppose all of that rubbed off on me to do the right thing, and it still is today. You know, I still try to do the right thing today when it comes to all these aspects.
You've maintained that whole healthy life ethic, or whatever you want to call it, right? Neil Crompton sometimes in commentary uses a great line about peak of your powers. Is there a year, is there a race season or something where you just felt like Stephen Gore was at his very best?
82.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, 82, I had that factory engine, the 250 frame. The bike was awesome. I had Steve Ashkenazi, he's a mechanic. Warren Willing was helping the year before. Rest in peace, Warren.
Yes.
And it was just a year that I felt really comfortable. I went back to America for the third time, because I would go to America from 80 to 85 for a month to 6 weeks, spend all my own money to do it, just as like was my apprenticeship.
Okay.
You know, I went there for training, learnt from the best.
Keep testing yourself. Keep pushing yourself.
That's right. And when I started, like I said, I was battling to get into the top 10. When I finished in 85, I was racing at the upper level with all those top guys. So I improved a lot over those 5 years. And that was because of what I learnt there and what I learnt in myself, and just got better and better and better. So I think you've got to look and absorb and read and sort of, and have the want to do it, the determination and the want to get out there.
On the two-wheel side, mate, I mean, you've talked about the tally of Mr Motocross wins. There are Australian Motocross, Dirt Track Championships. You have won the Fink Desert Race. There is World Masters Supercross in London, Nepean 6-hour dirt track race. You podiumed, I mean, I should bring this in here, you podiumed at the Castrol 6-hour road race. There are all these things that you have...
Well, it just probably shows that I can ride a motorcycle. And doesn't matter what it is, I can go quick, you know. And one thing I didn't do was do enduros. Yeah, and you know why? Because I didn't like working on the bike.
Really?
I think I got spoiled over the years that someone would work on the bike for me. And I never really got enduros because I had to change my tyres and do all that sort of stuff. And I know that sounds really like I was spoiled, and I probably was. But anyway, the road racing was pretty special, because I'd turn up the week before the Castrol 6-hour with leathers and my full-face helmet.
We're talking Amaru Park here? Is that where we are?
Always Amaru Park.
Yes.
And I could get within about a second of the best guys. We're talking the best out of Europe, the best out of America, you know, the Doohans, the Gardners, all the top guys. Paul Feeney.
Wow.
You know, Paul Feeney was one of the top guys back then. And all those guys were very respectful, very helpful. If I asked a question, they'd help me out. And that also embedded into me about helping the young kids, because those older people were helping me. And I just, I think I only fell off that thing twice, and I shocked a lot of people how fast I rode that XS 1100 around there. And but that was just fun. To me, it was fun. I just had to go, you know, and I did pretty good at it. And to win, or to get onto the podium on the XS 1100 with Ron Bolden that year in the wet was quite an achievement. I got a fifth another year also. So, as one of the guys tells me, he said, there'd be a lot of people who'd be very proud of your career, and I don't think much of it, because it was just something that I did, and it was fun at the time. But when I look back, I think, I didn't do too bad there. And quite honestly, I could have went on to bigger and better things with road racing.
Why didn't you then? Why?
That's a good question. I was hoping you were going to ask that, Greg. Because Amaru Park and then Oran Park, it was dangerous. The fences were right there, and I had this self-belief to look after myself. That's why I haven't hurt myself much over the years. And so I never went there. And I think if it was today and I had to go, honestly, I reckon I could run at a very, very high level if today was back then with the tracks.
Gotcha. With the safety, with the
safety and the bike. Right. I look at today and I go, oh yeah, That doesn't blow me out. I've been to MotoGPs and I watch all that stuff. It doesn't blow me out at all because I reckon I could have done that at a fairly high level. And would you believe that Jack Miller has been to one of my schools?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I went. This is a great story. I'm down at the Bend one year, just hanging out with Dan Stauffer and the boys in the Ducati and the Yamaha team, and Jack's there, and Jack, my son-in-law would really love a photo with you. Can I get a photo? I'm really nice to him, as I am. And I take the photo, and he says, "Now, Gawley," he said, "I want a photo with you. I did one of your schools." I went, "Really?"
That's fantastic.
I'd forgotten all this.
How old would you have been, do you reckon?
Oh, I don't even know.
Must have been like early teens or little.
Yeah, it was. It would have been probably 14, 15.
Okay.
I was in Townsville,
Love
where
it.
he come from. Yeah, so that was really cool. Another one's Troy Bayliss. He did the Hungry Creek schools back in the day. And he just loved it. No, I still know Troy really well today. I ride at his place sometimes and we hang out together a little bit. So really nice to see that some of those guys actually, I did some training with them back in the day and maybe some little piece stuck in their head that I helped them with.
I would 100% believe that with both of the people that you've just rattled off, mate. More than a little bit, I reckon, has been a takeaway. Tell me about the light bulb moment for academy then, for schooling, for teaching and all that sort of stuff. Was there a moment where you did something when you realised, A, the beauty in that, how much you loved and enjoyed it and how you wanted to embark on a bit of that?
Well, as I said before, I just love to see people do better with some help. And right from when I started my career in 77, 78, I started teaching at Hungry Creek. And I just really enjoyed seeing the young kids go faster and talk to you and respect you for you helping them. So that carried on from 77 right through to 2003, because the last 15 years I travelled Australia teaching the Academy of Off-Road Riding with Yamaha and many other sponsors. And there was no real light bulb moment. It was just enjoyment of seeing young people enjoy their sport. And of course, when I got to a certain point with my racing where I wasn't making enough money and I had an overdraft, I had 2 kids to look after, they had to be fed, that was my job.
Yeah,
I knew to do that job. So I was out there coaching. My wife was handling, the entries back at home with a knee brace business, with 2 kids. Like I say to people, you're never going to be very successful if you don't have a good team around you. And through all of my career, no matter what I've done, I've had good teams around me.
You. Yeah.
Whether it's Dean and our helpers with Speedway, whether it's my wife for many years with being a team there. With my motocross racing, have a good team of mechanics and support there. If you don't have a team, you can't do it yourself.
What did that evolve? Some of the, as you go, not just maybe from a riding and a technique perspective, does it evolve around mindset? Does it evolve around dietary stuff? How did the courses kind of evolve and the teachings evolve over time?
Yeah, good question. I certainly was a man before my time when it came to the curriculum of the schools because I could see that we had to teach kids off the track with certain techniques to help them on the track. Yeah. So we would do balance exercise, we do front brake skids, we do front brake stoppies, we do circles, full lock. And a lot of that was taught to me, which I wish was across Australia now, at the Illawarra Mini Bike Club.
Is that right?
And I did that stuff. There was no racing. There was slow riding, there was flag bending, there was hill climbing, there was who could wheelie the longest, all these basic skill techniques that that type of mini bike activity is still very, very active in New South Wales, not much in Queensland, not much in Victoria, nothing in WA, nothing in South Australia.
And yet so beneficial.
So beneficial. I'd really love to see that happen, as I would a few other goals in my life, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later.
In time. So I'm glad you brought up Illawarra there a moment ago too. In the book, there is, you must get it. You must get the book, and I'll tell you more about it at the end. There's a great photo. I think Sir Jack Brabham turned up one day, didn't you? You were very young. I mean, the Formula One legend turned up. Awesome. From the academy side of things and the connection with Yamaha and the enjoyment of training, if you will, there evolves an extension in this because I think in the early sort of foray with ATVs, Yamaha realised the need for safety in rural environments and things like that, and you became involved with them around that sort of tuition too, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Steve Cottrell again brought me in to when I got out of the academy training, I sold that business to Lyndon Heffernan, who was my head coach for many, many years, a great guy, really knew what he was doing. So he took that on board. And Steve Cottrell said, look, we've got a lot of dangerous activities with four-wheelers in Australia. There's a lot of people getting hurt. There's legal cases left, right and centre. So he sent me to America to become a coach with the SVIA, which is the Specialty Vehicle Institute of America.
Okay.
And they have ATV training because in the 90s when there was three-wheelers, people were dying all the time. And the government said to the American motorcycle industry, if you don't bring coaching and training in, we're going to and change the design of these things. That's why they went from three wheels to four wheels to make them safer. But then they'd put kids on them. They didn't realize they had to be rider active and shift your body weight around to keep the wheels on the ground. So I became an instructor. Then I went back and became the chief instructor, both in ATV and motorcycle racing with the SVIA, and brought that skill back to Australia to travel Australia doing seminars at all the farm shows. Okay. So I'd ride around on the ATV with a microphone on my mouth and talk to people, loudspeakers. So I did that up to 17 farm shows for a couple of years. I got a little bit bored with it after a while. That's why I finished up going to America to train Michael Byrne when he asked me to go across there. Cool. But Yamaha believed in me to do all that. And Rodney Jenner, who was another coach, he went on to carry on to become a chief instructor and to carry those farm show exhibitions on after I left when I went to America. So something the Yamaha, again, they're before their time. They started doing that years ago to help safety, to help the sport, and not only in racing, but in just safety with the farmers.
In daily life. Before Speedway, what was it like framing the decision to end kind of professional bike racing for you? When did that decision come in? You're still riding now. I mean, you talked about that at the beginning today, which I think is tremendous. But from the professional side, stopping that, how difficult was that? What? Tell me about that process.
I think it was 86. I unfortunately tore my other ACL in my right leg at Tony Hatton's place, testing a week away from the Mr Motocross first round. So I went to the first round and I got a whole shot in the second moto, I think, and I was leading it. I thought, I can go out with a win here maybe, and because I was thinking about ending my career, and then I tore the knee up again, and that was it for the day. So I really, at that stage, I saw that the end was near. And that's why then I changed from doing racing to schooling, to jump the fence, so to speak, and go to where I could earn a living. And that was the moment that I realised when I tore that knee up on the other side, and I knew how long it would take to come good. That year wasn't going to work well for me. But I came back after that a few supercrosses.
Yes.
I in 87, I finished second to James Deacon at the Sydney show at the Sydney Entertainment Centre at a supercross. So I was still having a go. I won the 86 Fink Desert race with the knee, because you didn't have to put your leg out on the ground for the desert race. So it slowed me up a little bit in motocross, but I still did some other things.
Excellent. Tell me about Fink. I've covered that a few times for broadcast. 200 plus Ks from Alice Springs to Apachula, camp the night there, turn around from Fink and head back to Alice, all over the King's birthday weekend. Iconic race, mate.
It really is, and it's a crazy race too. It really is. This year's the 50th anniversary of it, which I'm going to ride the adventure bike out. I'm going to ride the Yamaha Tenere out with two other winners, David Armstrong and Alan Rowe, from the same era that we won.
Excellent.
And when I first went there, let me tell you this story. I first went there the first year, invited out by Damien Ryan, and Eddie Baldacera had a Yamaha for me all set up. And down in those days, it was down the service track. Have you been there?
Yes, I have. The
service track that you drive the car down, that was the racetrack.
Racetrack, okay.
So
I know it well.
It's as wide as a road racetrack, and sometimes wider. And we'd do a Le Mans start onto the track, and then 2 corners in 66 kilometres, you backed out at full throttle. So you're doing 160 to 170 the whole way down there. 2 corners, you roll off a little bit and back on again. You're drifting through these corners. We didn't have any nose protection, so any little bit of sand coming off another bike, you'd be dodging the roost. It was just crazy. I still remember it. It was one of the iconic things that I did back in the day, And I seized the bike one year going down there. And but yeah, just a crazy race. And I get people nowadays say to me, "Oh, I want to do the Think," and I say, really? You really want to do the Think?" I said, "Do you know how hard it is?" I said, "Did you start training a year ago for it?"
And more.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough. Very hard on the lower back. But now they've got something called steg pegs that go onto the bike, and people's rear of the boot can sit into the steg pegs and take so much load off the arms and the lower back.
Okay.
They really are helpful. If you don't have those at Fink, you're going to suffer.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's a dodgy race, a crazy. I did it 7 times or something, and but the last time I did it was when I had a really bad concussion. I was trying to pass Kim Ashkenazi and got in ball dust, didn't see a washout on the outside of the track because it was just couldn't see it. I was doing about 80 mile an hour, about 140 at the time, and I hit this washout. And a year later, there was an impression in this area where I hit it because the water hadn't eroded. It doesn't rain too much out there. And lately it has. But there was impression. The bike went 90 metres. I went 60 metres. But would you believe I did not put a mark on my helmet? So I flicked through the air.
Sailing through the air,
60 metres I went, and the bike went 90. If I could have picked the bike up and kept racing, but it wasn't that badly bent, so I went wheel to wheel through the scrub, so to speak. And but that was the first time, and still today, I've ever been in an ambulance.
Really?
Yeah. I got taken back to Alice Springs in an ambulance. But I got concussed because my brain was flicked in my head so badly.
Right.
And recently I've had neck surgery.
Oh, yeah?
I've had 3 vertebrae fused by a legend surgeon here on the Gold Coast, Matthew Scott Young. He's a well-renowned surgeon. He goes in the front, pushes the trachea and the esophagus to the side. He plated 3 and put a hybrid disc in 1. And that with a big sprint car crash at Granville. I don't know whether you saw this in your time, but
I did.
I managed to ride a right rear wheel of a slower car once, being silly, trying to set a track record on a heat race. And I finished up jumping from his right rear into the tyres on the pit wall, and it come to a stop again at about 80, 140. And that we had no Hans neck devices.
Back then,
It was just a foam collar. So those 2 incidents really set sail to my needing this neck surgery recently.
Yeah, okay. You've taken us to Speedway, which I'm so pleased that you have. Firstly, we share a little common family love of Sydney Showground. My folks took me there before I could even walk, mate. So I know why the Gall family hold it in such high regard, right? But my vivid memories are at Parramatta of you, and other tracks too, but mainly Parramatta. Firstly, speed cars or midgets. I can't ride, I can't drive like you, but I've been allowed the chance to drive 2 midgets. I can vividly recall my father watching me do it this particular night because he loved them ever since he was knee high. And just practice nights. I love those things, mate. They're unbelievably cool. You win a title in 87, 88 in that damn thing. What was the move like, firstly, into Speedway, the planning around that, the learnings around that? How did you... What made you hit the go button on that?
Mainly because Dean had a bad accident at Mount Kembla. And Dean was Phil Golding was with him, who was one of our sprint car crew. But Dean couldn't afford to be away from work.
Okay.
He had he had money, had to pay, he had overdrafts and things like that. So he said, Stephen, do you want to overdrive? And I went, oh yeah, why not? It's like a big go-kart, isn't it? I'll have a go at that. So Dean, had an autocraft midget, and it was a really good car at the time. And when we won that Australian title, that was Dean's own car design. He designed that chassis. And
how special.
Yeah, he's very, very smart with all that stuff. And he may not, and he still can drive too, but he had a lightweight Mini Cooper S before that, cross-flow heads, developed full independent front suspension on it, was winning those races before he went to Speedway, which was done by Howard Revell, who was a legend back in the day.
Yes.
And then Dean got into the dirt, and then he got me into it. And so that was the start. And then in the midget, we just did well. Dean would set the car up really, really well. And again, I said to you before, without a team, you're nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
And Dean had the car really nicely set up. We had good equipment. Every time I went to America in the early 80s, I'd come back with a whole package of cylinder heads, injection, all the time, where you could put that into your bags, and you get to the airport at LAX.
So you got a lot of carry on, Mr. Gall.
and you bribe the guy behind the counter, or I bribed a couple of times a black dude at the front, one of the Negro guys at the front, who was the baggage handler, said, "Hey, buddy, how can you get this on? It's a little bit overweight." "Sure, bro, give him 100. No worries." So back in the day where you could do that, you can't do it these days. But anyway, I bought so much stuff back. But yeah, it was great career. Midgets were good. Then Sid Moore, who he gave me a drive in Melinda's sprint car.
Okay.
I got out of that. I can still remember this. I got out of the sprint car after that race. I don't know where I finished or what I did, but I got out of it. I went, "Dean, we need to do this. This is just so much fun."
Yeah.
When you're talking the powder ratio of those things, I know a lot of the touring car guys, the supercar, they're scared to get in those things. And because
Gardner and Crompo did one night, I think, down there when you guys were in that era and stuff. But anyway, yes.
Well, back that night, I started that.
Yeah.
I went to the promoter, Dave Lander at the time, and said, "Why don't you bring a couple of the motorcycle heroes? I know them all. I'll get Doohan and Gardner and Leesky and Dak and have a little bit of a match race."
Awesome.
And that's what got those guys into it. Then Wayne enjoyed it, so he drove our car a little bit. And that led me to having a drive his Coca-Cola car. Maybe we'll come back to that in a second with touring cars. Yeah. And, they really enjoyed it. But it was, Wayne did pretty good, didn't set the world on fire. But then you don't in anything you first get into.
Yeah.
And that leads me to when I got into his touring car.
Go.
At Oran Park, short circuit. They say jokingly to me at the start, if you can do the same times as Wayne, you might get a drive in this thing. And I went, I just want to get round the track. And in those days, the guys, I watch it these days a lot. And again, I watch it with some respect.
Yes.
Like, I'm not trying to be cheeky here, but they got it easy. Paddle shifters. Back in those days, those boys had those Hollinger gearboxes that the gates were really, really close. And it was difficult to drive. And of course you got used to it, but I got in this thing and never driven one of these things before. The Hollinger gearbox, I was more worried about the gearbox and steering the thing. I got within about a second of a good time.
That's pretty reasonable,
first time in. So I was okay. And I know Dick Johnson was looking at me at some stage because I had a year in a BMW Group E car supplied by Philip Christensen. They had a Speedway magazine, Phil Christo, who did Supercross Masters for many, many years. And that's something I should have chased too, but I didn't because it wasn't dirty enough, I suppose. But yeah.
But the sprint car thing you do chase significantly.
Yeah. Well, again, because Dean really loved it and we had a great crew of Phil Golding and Rick Spence and all the boys around us. They loved it and they were prepared to help us do a lot of the work, which I wasn't. I was the great sponsor getter, the cleaner.
Or Valvoline, I think back then, wasn't
it? They were one of our big sponsors, Valvoline.
Yeah.
And Petters came on board when Dean was a Petters franchise.
Excellent.
So all that helped, and all the money we made, we put back into it. But, we have regrets. And one of my regrets with sprint car racing is that I didn't chase enough racing on a variety of tracks. And that was the reason, because we both had businesses. Dean just had a Bronco with a motor that sucked the juice like crazy. We did the World Sprint Car Series 1 year from Perth around the country. And it was just too hard to fit into our lifestyle with raising a family and everything else. And we just, after doing years of sacrificing the family, I wasn't prepared to continually do that to my family. So that's why we chased it at Granville and Newcastle, but we didn't go further afield too much. And I know I could have done better in the sprint cars than I did, but, a fifth and almost a third in the Australian Championship when I got taken out in the last corner 1 year. We won't mention the person's name, but he said to me, "Oh, that was a legitimate move, Gawley. Everyone does that." But I say at 80 mile an hour, 1.5 meters off the fence on the cush, and you're not focusing on what's coming up on your left. And the slide job wasn't done much back in those days, hardly at all in the late 80s. And yet this thing comes up underneath me, wipes me out, puts me into the wall, tears the front off the car within nearly spitting distance of the checkered flag. And the way the officials handled that situation just left Dean and I with our mouths open. We went, you know what? We're not going to chase this anymore. I did one more year of it and I went, nah, I'm out, Dean. So I lost the love because of the way it was handled.
Really?
Yeah, I did. But I love racing those cars.
Does, yeah.
Unbelievable. I got into Todd Kelly's car over 20 years later.
Did you?
Yeah. 10 years later up at Archerfield.
Okay.
And when it was a 410 instead of the 387 cubic inch, and with a wall on the outside of Archerfield with a 410, 950, 60 horsepower, you had to give that thing a lot of respect. Anyway, that night I had a competitive lap time 10 years later. You know, I still felt really, really cool in the car. You know, I got out and Todd went, it looked like it was just yesterday he got out of it, Stephen. So I was really pleased that I could do well from that time. And I'd love to be in one now, to tell you the truth. Yeah. But I haven't got that sort of money. Nowadays, it is very, very expensive. Yeah. Like every motor racing.
I think the book talks about, you know, stopping professional racing, however many decades ago it was, mate. Was that difficult? I mean, you light up with some of these stories that you're telling me here now, how much you enjoy it and so on. Was it a conscious decision to stop doing that stuff? How tough was that to make? Because it had been, other than the job at BMC and Jaguar there that you talked about, it had been your life.
It was my life, yeah. Motor racing across the board was my life. And I think it was only because of family pressures that I had to keep, you know, earning enough money to keep the wolves from the door, so to speak. Yeah.
That's pressure on yourself, though, too, isn't it? You're wanting to do that, not necessarily what you're describing around what your wife might be expecting, per se. That's the way you're...
I'm thinking, and of course, you know, Gay was suggesting that we've got to maybe get serious in life a little bit more. And I took on the knee brace distribution with the CDI knee braces out of America, which gave the family amazing opportunity to travel to America many, many times and experience some really good trips over there. So it wasn't all bad, but I did so many years of it. It was sort of the natural thing to move on, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
You brought up a bit of coaching there before. Can we, and going to the States to help the likes of Matt Mladen and so on. What transpires there? You're getting a call from Peter Doyle or something, or how did the connection come about there in that sense?
Well, the initial reason why going to America to train was a phone call from Michael Byrne, who's over there training the Lawrence brothers at the moment. Amongst others like Johnny O'Mara. And Berner rang me up and said, I've got a factory Kawasaki contract. I need some help. He said, I really believe in you, Stephen. You helped me from a very early age. I taught him up at Claremont in central Queensland, a mining town up there a long time ago. And he said, would you come over and spend some time with me? And at that stage, I could only do 3 months at a time with the visas that was available. So I spent the first year at 3 months, came back for a week or two, then went across again and blah, 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 got through the year. I did that for free.
Did you?
Didn't charge any money.
What was Berner? What was Berner like, mate? Because I have memories of him around kind of the Chad Reed era and things like that. What was he like to work with?
Oh, a great guy. We got on really, really well. Heaps of natural ability. Maybe not the same want that I could see that I wanted out of him. Okay. And unfortunately, it worked out that he was a little bit fragile. Okay. And when I say fragile, he got hurt easily when he fell off. Okay. Now, whether you deem that as bad luck or he was a bit fragile, because some people seem to roll with the punches. Like I've had a lot of back crashes in my time and I've rolled out of most of them and stood up and walked away when that's another one of those. But some people don't. They hit the ground and they don't know how to fall. But anyway, Berner was a little bit that way. So that led me into it. And I was with Berner for a couple of years. And then I'm, of course, at the Kawasaki factory practice track on the edge of the 15 freeway down to San Diego, and James Stewart is in the same team. So James is at the track and he sees what I'm doing with Michael as far as breaking the track down with lap times and lines and walking things and repetitiously doing things and probably overhearing some of my talk because we're in the same sort of area. And this is the time where, unfortunately, Michael broke a ligament in his thumb, missed 2 months, missed making any points in the outdoors. They put him off. Kawasaki put him off and put someone else on. I think it was Tim Ferry that replaced him. And I could see no future with him anymore, unfortunately. So this didn't happen at that time. But James, just before that, said, "Oh, Stephen, would you be interested in coaching me next year?" And I was blown away.
Help, that's hell of a feather.
Like, this guy is one of the best in America with Ricky Carmichael, and he's asked me to train him, and I'm going, wow, that's special.
Yeah.
And that's really, really nice. And then Michael's thing come up, and I went, oh, okay, so I have got a future here. And then a couple of weeks later, Matt Mladen rings me up. And Matt goes, oh, Stephen, he said, my regular guy, Marty Craggle's going back to Australia. He said, would you join me to help me train and help motivate me? And I went, oh, God, I've got the best superbike racer in America and the best supercross racer, arguably, in America, asking me to train them. This is unbelievable. And it really took me back. And what am I going to do? So I thought about it a lot. I talked to Goat Brecker, who was a good mate. And Goat says, why don't you do both of them?
Yeah.
And I went, oh, yeah, okay. But to my disadvantage, it was my fault that both of those fell in a hole. I should have concentrated on one, not the other.
Okay.
Again, spreading your wings too widely is a problem that we have in life. A lot of us get too greedy. And it wasn't about the money being greedy. It was about me taking on these notable people and not trying to train them. And we come up with all sorts of special things with Bubba, because Bubba wasn't that fit. Although on a motorcycle, he was so efficient, just like Toby Price. He's another example of someone being extremely efficient on the bike and doesn't need a lot of training to get the job done. Well, James was the same. We put him through a beep test. You know what a beep test is? Where they run back and forth 20 meters to a degree of music, and they've got to keep up with the beep. Well, he did 9.2 level, which is really poor, really poor. And like, I was in my 50s, I was running 11.1 or something at that stage. 9.2. Anyway, we developed a training program that would suit him. Then going back, I probably should have concentrated on just him and do what I know best, and that's dirt bikes, more so than being involved with Matt with road racing. But you live and learn.
Matt's that stage of his career, really dedicated athlete, mate, wasn't he? Pretty impressive.
He was amazing. He had so much determination. And he comes from a European background. His dad was very aggressive, and he brought that aggression onto the track and that determination. And good on him. He 7 USA Superbike titles is no easy feat. That guy could certainly ride a motorcycle. And, you know, he was another one that did my academies back in the day. And I thought I had a bit more respect with Matt, but we fell out through, I won't go there, White. We fell out. But there was something that happened in his program that I didn't like. And he didn't like me not liking what he liked. So I got turfed, unfortunately, which was a shame because I brought some special things into his program that he didn't think about that helped him. So, yeah, it was good fun.
Motocross of Nations. You talked before about the early years. Let's fast forward to what you're doing now, the joy of what you were able to achieve with the team in relatively recent time and so on, to have reignited, maybe isn't the right word, Gawley, I'm not sure, but you've put some good impetus into that, again, the group of you, haven't you? And it's fantastic.
Well, again, Greg, it's a team. You know, Mark Lutzich, for instance, has been there from day dot, just about 86. He was his first Motocross of Nations. 85,
he's a great fellow. I've often seen him with Christo and things. Yes, great fellow.
Mark, he's still very involved with MA of Australia. He was the manager of the recent Oceania Australian team. He is the chairman of the board, so to speak, of us. So we've got Jeff Leask, myself, and Mark Lutzich, where the Australian team, in conjunction with Peter Doyle, the boss of MA. And then we've got Gary Ben and Michael Byrne, who handle the race situation. And they're the team, the race day guys, the managers on race day. So I still travel Australia to all the rounds of the Pro Motocross, selling the merch. A few years ago, I said, after going to the France round at Ernay, which we're back this year to Ernay, there was 101,000 people in this small valley in France. It was the most outrageous event I have ever been to. You know, as far as the French love motocross, chainsaws with megaphones, engines being revved, flares going up, music blaring with huge speakers in the middle. It's just an amazing atmosphere. And like I say, 101,000 people there. It was just crazy. So I said to Jeff, Jeff, we need to do a tour. You just did a tour to the Isle of Man with a guy in Sydney, and that Nick at Latitude Travel, he's now running the tours. The first year in Matterley Basin, we had 42. Last year we had 63 at the Ironman circuit in America.
Excellent.
And we're already got 53 this year. We can ceiling it at 96 punters that come to the, and they love it. They have such a good time. We're in the VIP diamond area, the best view of the track.
Perfect.
Leesky and I, we chaperone everyone. They get free booze, they get free food.
Yeah, great stories.
Great stories. They see Australia win, and then the Lawrence boys, they're just outstanding, those two.
Tell me more about them, mate. I mean, we're enjoying in one of the many different divisions of motorcycle racing in this country. We are enjoying two guys in, the best form of it in the United States, and they're kind of once in a generation riders, aren't they?
They certainly are. They've come from the Sunshine Coast, and Darren, the dad, had them riding, and Jet's just been this kid that's had a go over time, and then and then Hunter's a lot more focused like I was.
Okay.
A lot more focused, thinks about things a little bit more. Jet just has a go, but he's got this amazing ability. He's just amazing, and they've gone to Europe. They've done the hard yards in Europe. They've got good help over there. Stefan Everts and others have helped him, which are notable names, huge names in the sport over there. And they've come back to America, and they've tied in with good people like Johnny O'Mara and now Michael Burns in helping them. And so it's really good to see. It's doing so much for Australian motocross, and all these young kids now that watch the Lawrence brothers in Australia, they're inspired so much. To me, it's just, I watch it every time, of course, and I'm just cheering for the boys, hoping they do well. And Hunter won again last weekend, in a day race at Nashville, and it was so cool to see. But we can win 3 in a row this year, and that's the first time. Particularly if Kyle Webster is a team member again, like he was the last 2 years. Even last year, we set a new record where the same team members won twice in a row. That's never been done before. And this year would be 3 times in a row if Kyle makes the team. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm out there just chipping away, raising some money, and it's not just the money, but it's also raising the importance and the whole aspect around Motocross Innovations. That's an Australian effort. We're out there doing it
proudly in the green and gold.
People love it. Like as part of the crew last year in the special VIP area, we had 65 of us, all in green and gold, all yelling, oi, 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 Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. All this was happening. I know that sounds bogan, but it's sort of stuck with us a little bit. And all the other countries in the VIP, we're looking at us going, what are these bogans doing? But we're yelling and making a big scene, and it was just good fun, just really good fun. So if anyone wants to come to it, they should try to get onto Latitude Travel in Sydney and get their website, talk to Nick, and get on board. It's pretty cheap to do it, considering. And I just hope that they finish doing what they're doing in the Middle East so we can fly there.
Can do it. Yeah. Do it with ease too. Get on the phone or make that happen. A great experience with you lot. I know what that would be like. Couple of things here to finish. Firstly, are our stocks for the future, from what you're seeing of young kids riding, from what you're seeing of the passion for the sport, are we in a good place at the moment? Do we need to do more work? Where are we at, do you think, for the future?
As far as skill and talent, it's everywhere.
Is it?
Yeah, it's everywhere. But the want, I can see, isn't quite everywhere.
Where do they get that from? That's a self thing? It's
a self thing that
a parental thing?
It can be a parental thing that it's inspired, like Dazzy's done that for the Lawrence boys, and they've done it hard. And the boys owe it to the family. That's why they're doing it so well.
Okay.
So there's a reason. There's not many rich families that do well at this game.
Okay.
Jeff Leask was an exception. He just had that inner want. He wanted to do it so badly. Bob, his dad, rest in peace, Bob. He helped too. Helen, his mum, they helped out as much as possible. They had a bit of money to help in the early days, which was great. But Craig Dack didn't have any money. Glenn Bell didn't have any money. All these people, they develop a want because they can see that they need to do it. And a lot of I think there's more money out there these days. The base stations, the the big SUVs are taking bikes. Parents buy everything. I think a lot of the time the kids just don't have the want because it becomes too easy.
Normalized.
Yeah,
Normalized.
it's too easy for them. They don't realize what they're getting. And even Todd Waters the other day said the same thing to me, that he helps these young kids and he still beats them at his ages that he is. And he has a go at them about, and they go, oh, what do you reckon? They have all these excuses. And it's not about excuse, about getting onto it and getting out there and doing it, and training hard, riding in all conditions. And, from my point of view, one of my things that I'd still like to do within the sport, we briefly talked about the Illawarra Mini Bike Club in the Gymkhana style events, which I think is totally important for kids to do under 12 years of age. I don't think there should be any racing under 12 because the parents start racing, not the kids.
Gotcha.
Half the time, or most of the time. But the other thing I'd really like to see is a national training facility this takes money.
Nice. Yes.
And we need to have a national training facility where these kids can come from probably 12 years of age. They're not missing school. They're still tutored with their school during the day. But it's like getting a university degree where you still learn the basics, but you get specialized in whether it's physiology, psychology, whatever. Well, then there's still physical training to do. They're still learning about the motorcycle. They're still out there in the track being trained by an expert. So we're not far from this at a place like Queensland Motor Park where I was today. With $1 million or so invested into that place, with a gymnasium, a better restaurant, accommodation for the kids, a manager's position to be, to be built. The infrastructure's there already, except for those things. And I just need to try to find some rich individual that loves the sport that wants to put in.
They can see that vision.
They can see the vision that I've got. And I can direct the vision. And a couple of years ago in Salt Lake City, I talked to Hunter Lawrence about this. And Hunter said to me, he said, Stephen, I think you're wrong. I think they need to go overseas. And Hunter, I agree with you, mate, but they've got to learn about sports science and develop the want before they go overseas, and totally agree with what Hunter said. At the age of 15 to 16, yes, they need to go there. But prior to that, we need to give them direction.
The building blocks.
Got to be the building blocks. So anyway, I'm keep chipping away at that one.
Good. I'm not a believer in regret, mate. You used that once in our conversation today. Is there anything that you wanted to do that you haven't done that you feel Stephen Gall maybe should have done differently? Is there anything like that?
Not really. If it was a different era, I'd love to have more of a go at road racing, both in cars and bikes.
Okay.
But that's a different era too. So it's a regret, but not really. Apart from that, I really have no regrets apart from a couple of injured knees, which could have been better. But you get that. You play this game, a motorcycle, and you've got to expect to get injured. Did
you say they have to be replaced at some point, or what did you say before?
Yeah, I really need 2 new knees. There's a surgeon here called Chris Ficciulo on the Gold Coast. He's an adventure bike rider as well.
Okay.
And he's been lining me up for an operation for about 20 years now.
Why? You've, through fitness, been able to avoid it, or are you ducking and weaving here?
No, through fitness is helping, through keeping muscles around the joint good. Also, would you believe stem cell therapy?
Okay.
There's an osteopath called David Krasanik here in Ashmore on the Gold Coast. And he's treated me with stem cell therapy, which a lot of people don't believe in, but I tell you what, it's kept me going.
Is it?
I've lost the wear and tear in the knee to a degree. I have no pain in the knee. They look a bit ugly. They're off to some angles, but they're still working. And there's things like that.
You love that stuff, don't you? Like considering
alternatives.
Yep. Yeah. You're not afraid of that, are you?
No, I've had a go at alternatives a lot over time. And a lot of them have been working well for me. So, for instance, regular doctors don't really suit me that much. I'd rather naturopaths and osteopaths, and alternatives are nice.
You've kept your youth, you bastards. So something.
I'm trying.
Okay, well, I reckon you're doing pretty damn well. I rattled off some of the statistics before, mate. I haven't even touched on those. I'll put them in the introduction to this wonderful chat that we've had here today. There are inductions into the Australian Motorsport Hall of Fame. There is so much in the way of of recognition for what you've done. I love the fact that you are still getting out of bed every day, A, eager to ride, B, determined to see that next wave of kids coming through and doing well and with all the right skill set on and off the bike. I think that is just tremendous. The book, for those of you listening and watching this on YouTube, the book is called No Easy Way, the Stephen Gall story. It is edited by Andrew Clubby, and the legendary speedway rider Dennis Newland has taken part in this too. It is a great work of art with some beautiful pictures in there. Look for it, find it, grab a copy of it. Thank you very much for coming into the studio and chatting with me today, mate. This has been long overdue and a joy to do.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rusty. It's been great. Thank you.